Today, we're stepping totally outside the ordinary and venturing straight into the terrifying shadows of folklore. We're looking at two highly distinct, completely cursed locations pulled directly from some incredibly chilling source material. Now, these are not your standard, run-of-the-mill ghost stories. Nope. These are fascinating accounts of places where death just loops, endlessly, trapping absolutely anyone who unwittingly crosses their path. So let's dive right in and unpack exactly how these supernatural traps operate.
Just imagine a bustling government hospital. By day, it's exactly what you'd expect, right? You've got patients milling about, doctors rushing down the halls, just that constant, chaotic flow of life and medicine. But, as our source material reveals, something completely inexplicable happens the moment evening approaches. The literal second the clock nears 7 p.m., the entire environment descends into absolute panic. Staff members practically sprint for the exits, actively clearing every single person out of the building. They completely evacuate the place, leaving it as this dark, abandoned shell. And the truly chilling part about this rule? It's absolute. Nobody stays behind. Not a single soul.
To understand exactly why this strict 7 p.m. curfew even exists, we need to look at our very first case study. Section 1. Tales of the Cursed, the Government Hospital Tragedy.
Our story kicks off with an innocent couple, Manu and Mamta. They're driving through this absolutely terrible storm. Manu is kind of an inexperienced driver, and they're in the middle of an argument when, bam, he loses control of the car and they suffer a massive crash. Mamta is bleeding heavily, so a desperate Manu carries her through the freezing rain and, as luck would have it, stumbles upon this very hospital. Now, obviously, they are completely unaware of the 7 p.m. curfew. Manu is just relieved to see a hospital sign. But once they get inside, it's pitch black. The lights are flickering and the place is totally deserted. Manu leaves Mamta on a stretcher to go find help, only to come back and hear her say that apparently phantom doctors had just come out of the dark, treated her wounds, and bandaged her up. Relieved but completely exhausted, they just decide to crash on a waiting room bench for the night.
But you guys, this is where the horror truly peaks. Right in the dead of night, Manu wakes up and realizes Mamta is gone. He frantically chases her down these pitch-black corridors, finally catching up to her right at the entrance of the morgue. And when he asks her what on earth she's doing, she just turns to him and utters this absolutely chilling phrase: "I am looking at my own body." The gruesome reality of that statement fully sets in the next morning when the hospital staff finally returns. They walk into a literal nightmare. Manu is lying dead right there on the morgue floor, and Mamta is found hanging from the ceiling. They had absolutely no idea what they had just walked into. So, what kind of supernatural force actually claimed their lives? And why would a fully functional, government-run hospital completely shut down every single night? Let's move into Section 2. Origins of the Agori, and see how this paints a picture of ultimate supernatural vengeance. According to the nurses detailed in our source material, the origin of this curse is just a totally twisted timeline of events. Let's trace it back. 6 months ago, two men bring in the body of an Agori, which is a type of mystic ascetic whom they had accidentally hit with their car out in the jungle. Now, they brought him in out of basic humanity, but during the forced autopsy, the doctors realized something horrifying. The Agori's heart was actually still beating, even though his body appeared completely dead. The exact moment the doctor made a cut with his scalpel, the Agori's spirit violently ripped itself from his body, absolutely furious that his deep penance had been broken. To try and cleanse the hospital, about a month ago, a Jod Fuk Bava, an exorcist, was brought in. He chanted mantras all day long, but when 7 p.m. struck, everyone else bolted, leaving him completely alone in the dark. And this right here perfectly illustrates the inescapable toll of the Agori's wrath. It's brutal. That spirit literally physically lifted the two men who brought him in and choked them to death. And that brave exorcist who tried to rid the hospital of the spirit, yeah, he was found dead the very next morning. It left everyone terrified, wondering if his body was somehow locked in the morgue, completely untouchable, because anyone who even tries to touch it gets killed by the Agori. And of course, that leads right to the tragic end of Manu and Mamta. The spirit is just leaving a trail of bodies simply because these people found themselves in the wrong place at the worst possible time. The staff literally has no solution left but to evacuate by 7 p.m. every single day, leaving the hospital entirely to the terrifying echoes of the Agori's laughter ringing out from the morgue.
Which brings us right to our second case file. Section 3. The Midnight Death Bus. We are shifting from a stationary, cursed building to a literal mobile nightmare on a lonely, freezing road.
So we follow this everyday guy named Shailesh. He's just wrapped up a late-night office event. It's absolutely freezing outside, his ride-hailing apps are completely dead, and he is stranded on this dark, desolate stretch of road right in the middle of the jungle. He's shivering and he is just desperate for a way home. So out of sheer desperation, he spots a bus slowly emerging from the thick darkness and frantically flags it down. Honestly, he's just relieved to finally get out of the bitter cold.
But the very first sign of impending doom is subtle, yet absolutely terrifying. Shailesh boards the bus and asks the conductor for a ticket to the station. The conductor doesn't say a single word. He just silently hands him a ticket. But when Shailesh actually looks closely at it, it's this crumbling, incredibly old piece of paper. And the date printed on it? June 2003, a ticket from literal years in the past.
As you can imagine, Shailesh's panic starts escalating rapidly. He's standing in this freezing vehicle, and as he turns around to maybe ask the conductor a question, he finally gets a closer look at the other passengers. They aren't just sleeping commuters. They are entirely dried-up skeletons sitting bolt upright in the seats. And looking out the front window, the horror just deepens. The driver is completely ignoring the road and is steering the bus directly toward a massive, steep cliff. Realizing the bus has absolutely zero intention of stopping, Shailesh operates on pure survival instinct. He literally throws himself out of the moving vehicle, leaping for his life onto the freezing asphalt. Trembling on the side of a dark road, Shailesh runs into an old man who confirms his absolute darkest fears. The man looks at him and says in this incredibly somber voice, "It is not a bus. It is the bus of death. Every night it repeats the scene of its death." Shailesh hadn't just boarded some weird public transport. He had literally walked right into a phantom echo of a past tragedy. A bus doomed to repeat its fatal plunge into the ravine every single night. The old man tells Shailesh straight up he only survived because of his good karma.
So how do these connect? Today, we're really trying to understand how these two seemingly different stories are actually bound by a singular, terrifying mechanic. Let's move to Section 4, Cycles of Supernatural Tragedy, and analyze the underlying structure of these supernatural phenomena based on our sources.
When we put them side by side, we're really looking at two sides of the exact same cursed coin. Over in the hospital, we're dealing with an active, highly sentient entity, right? The Agori spirit is furious, it's seeking revenge, and it is actively interacting with the living to claim brand new victims every single night. But on the other hand, the bus operates entirely as a passive loop in time. It isn't actively hunting Shailesh down, it's just mindlessly repeating its own tragic accident on an endless loop. Yet despite this massive fundamental difference in how they operate, both of these locations guarantee death to anyone who accidentally steps inside their boundaries. They are, quite literally, geographic traps of doom. As we wrap up these chilling case studies from our folklore sources, it leaves us with a genuinely terrifying question to ponder. Knowing what you know now about the Ahori's hospital and that doomed 2003 death bus, the very next time you find yourself stranded on a dark, rainy night, would you rather suffer out in the freezing storm or take your chances and step inside the first open door you see? Really think about that the next time you're traveling late at night.